Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 3rd of January 2024. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I'm back after around, I think, 10 or 11 days since I went on break during the Christmas period there. I hope you all had a great kind of holiday break and a great New Year's. I did remember to say 2024 instead of 2023 in the intro. I sometimes screw that up in the transition over the year because obviously during the whole year I'm saying, the 2023 for like all of last year, and sometimes I screw that up. But I got that right. But yeah, welcome to 2024. I honestly think this year is going to be a very bullish year overall. I think that's the general vibe and sentiment right now. Obviously, we're on the eve of the ETFs being approved or probably being approved, which I'll talk about in a sec. But yeah, I think the break was really good for me, honestly. I didn't get to do everything that I wanted to do during it. I did want to play, kind of play some more video games and things like that. But I didn't get to do that. Honestly, I was kind of like doing a bunch of things outside of the home, visiting friends and family, stuff like that during the holiday period. That really the only game that I played was Mario Kart 8 on the Switch because it's like a pick up and play game, and I'm actually quite good at it, so it makes it fun when you're good at something, right? But other than that, I tried to play Baldur's Gate 3. That was one of the games that I really wanted to play, and I just didn't get enough time to do it. And then there was some other stuff that happened in my personal life that prevented that. But generally, I think I've had a really good kind of refresh, and I'm really, really glad to be back. Honestly, I've missed you guys. I've missed doing the refuel. I mean, I've been active on Twitter and in the Discord channel, but I've really missed doing the refuel. So anyway, enough about my kind of like time away. Let's get into today's episode. Kicking us off is some news around the Bitcoin ETFs. Well, maybe not news, but I mean like we're a few days away now from these things being approved. Some people think that they are going to be approved this week. So obviously there's only 3 days left of this week, but some people think it's going to be approved this week. But that deadline is fast approaching. That Jan 10th deadline that we've been talking about for a very long time now. I mean, it feels like forever. Like it feels like it's been years, but has only been like 6 months, the majority of it. I mean, since BlackRock filed their ETF in June, I think is obviously the thing that kickstarted all of this. But really, it's been a ride, that's for sure, right? Obviously, the market has priced a lot of this in. We've seen Bitcoin move from 25k to 45k, and it continues to move up slowly over time. I mean, pretty much at yearly highs right now. I mean, it's only been 3 days of the year, but like I like saying that joke. We're at yearly highs, right? And then a bunch of other things have been moving around that as well. Obviously, the market generally is heating up, and I did say that we were in that transition from like crab to bull market. I think we exited that transition maybe like a week or two ago, and I think we're firmly in the bull market now. We're like the early stages of the bull market, but we're firmly there. Obviously marching up towards all-time highs, which could still take until. I mean, I think I said that I expected maybe in Q2 now instead of Q3, but it could still take until Q3 this year to happen, right? I think people underestimate how long we can go sideways for during a bull market still, or during the early stages of a bull market. And this cycle actually looks a lot more like the 2015 to 2017 cycle rather than the 2019 to 2021 cycle. Just if you look at the charts, it's been more gradual. And obviously the 2019 and to 2021 cycle had a bunch of different things happen that didn't happen this time. I don't know how many of you know about this, but in 2019, there was a massive Ponzi out of China called the Plus Token Ponzi that led to a lot of buy pressure on BTC and ETH. And that's why you saw BTC and ETH go up a lot in 2019 and then come back down a lot as well. Is because that Ponzi got shut down. The people behind it were arrested in China, I believe. But that caused that kind of anomaly there. And then if you look in 2020, there was another anomaly caused by the COVID dump, right? Which basically delayed the bull market by I think at least 6 months if you actually look at the charts. Whereas this time around, we haven't really had much of that, right? All of the kind of bad stuff happened not last year, 2022, right? With everything blowing up, but it blew up quite quickly, quite spectacularly. And then we recovered into 2023, and then we had the recovery it become even stronger because of the BlackRock ETF filing, which I have said to you guys brought things forward. Because it's just such a bullish catalyst there. And now we're at the point where we're on the eve of, I guess, like these things being approved. I mean, Jan 10th is next week, guys. Jan 10th is next Wednesday. That is the final deadline. So even if it doesn't get approved this week, it is pretty much guaranteed to be approved next week. I think the entire market is expecting this. Obviously, there is still like 1% chance that these things get denied, and then I don't know what's going to happen in the market. But yeah, we're on the eve basically of this stuff. Yeah, and maybe it gets approved today. Maybe I'm just like rambling, and before the refill even goes out, it gets approved. But we'll see. Obviously, the people that follow are the usual people that I've been talking about on the refuel, like James Seifert, and Eric Balkanis, two of the ETF analysts that I've talked about a lot over the past few months. And of course, once the Bitcoin spot ETFs are approved, we get to do this all again for the ETH ones, because the first ETH spot ETF deadlines are in May, I believe, or final deadlines are in May, I believe. So we get to do this up until May at least. And I don't know. I kind of like I definitely think that there's more of a chance that they're going to be approved than denied at this point, simply because of the fact that the SEC has lost a lot of court cases, as I've said before. And they're just not really in favor right now with the political kind of parties that back them. And definitely, I think that just approving the BTC and ETH spot ETFs would be enough to, I guess, like satiate the market and maybe stop the lawsuits coming in as well. But yeah, we'll have to see how that kind of plays out there. But yeah, guys, I think the next few days are going to be definitely very interesting. We'll see if they get approved this week or next week. But yeah, we're on the eve of it right now, and exciting times ahead. All right, so Vitalik was very busy over the holiday period. In particular, he publishing a bunch of blog posts. One of them was titled "Make Ethereum Cypherpunk Again." Now, this was probably my favorite one that he published. He did publish one about potentially changing some things about proof of stake on Ethereum to basically harden the protocol and make it more efficient and more reliable. But in this blog post, where he titled it "Make Ethereum Cypherpunk Again," he basically calls for us to return to our roots, because I think that due to the financial incentives and financial nature of crypto, the roots of crypto, the things that Vitalik has mentioned here, which I'll mention in a sec, the meat of it is basically in this part of the post, they've kind of been pushed to the wayside in, I guess, favor of degen, casino, gambling stuff. And I'm not making a moral judgment here. I'm not saying that something's good or bad, but I think that the ideals that crypto was founded on are always taking a back seat to that, because those ideals are definitely more longer term. They're not something that's going to, potentially make you rich. They're not like appealing to the casino degen types out there. They're more of like the long term in it for the tech kind of values and things that people kind of value over, I guess, like decades, right? Not the short term stuff here. And what are those things, right? Well, they're listed here in Vitalik's post, where he says, the main values here are that anyone in the world should be able to participate in this network. So open global participation of the network. Decentralization, obviously, censorship resistance, auditability, credible neutrality, building tools, not empires, and cooperative mindset. Those are like the core pillars that Vitalik has addressed here, or has kind of noted here, as being something that makes Ethereum cypherpunk. That basically is the cypherpunk Ethereum values, but not just for Ethereum, also for Bitcoin. Bitcoin started this whole movement, right? But I think, as I said, a lot of this stuff just gets lost. A lot of that stuff gets lost in the noise of the markets, of the financial side of crypto. But it's kind of a necessary evil, because the financial side of crypto is what enables this stuff to exist in the first place, right? We wouldn't actually be able to have blockchains at all if it wasn't for the financial incentives. But I think what Vitalik's trying to do with this post is basically balance it out and basically say, hey, it's not all about the casino degen games, right? There are so many other things happening within crypto that are non-speculative. He calls out stuff like, public goods funding, for example, which in part obviously is, well, I guess like a lot of it is funded by the degen activity, but it itself is not a degen activity, right? Funding public goods. Like that is a very great thing that has come out of the Ethereum ecosystem. I think he calls out ENS in this blog post as well as another non-financial kind of use case here that has taken off in a really big way. I think payments as well is something really cool, because when you look at payments, like payments aren't inherently speculative, right? I know people do payments on chain for a bunch of speculative reasons. I mean, for example, if you're paying someone to buy assets off of them, like if you're, I don't know, just use a personal example here. If I'm doing an angel investment, I'm going to use stablecoins in order to do that. That is a speculative investment, right? But if you're just buying like a coffee or buying, some product or paying for some service with a stablecoin, that is not a speculative thing, right? So stablecoins can be used for both, but I think that people are using stablecoins as a non-speculative thing as well. They're holding their wealth in it, right? They're getting access to US dollars, those kind of things. And then, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of, I guess, like applications out there that are non-speculative, but of course, they're not talked about that much, not spoken about that much because of that nature, right? Some of them have tokens attached to them, but like, they're not shilled like other things, because if people want to shill a token, they're going to shill a meme coin, like a dog coin or something, because that is just what the, I guess, current meta is, and that is what the traders love, and that's the narratives that get pushed. Like, for example, ENS has a token, but no one's shilling ENS and saying like, ENS is huge, buy ENS because of such and such reason. ENS isn't a meme coin. It's not like some super speculative thing. It really is a governance token at the end of the day, and it actually works to govern the ENS protocol. But that's not exciting for people. That's not exciting for the degen people and the casino goers and things like that, right? Because at the end of the day, a casino is, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have walked into an actual physical casino before. They're not boring places when you really break it down, right? They're very, very vibrant places. I mean, there are lights everywhere. There is noise everywhere. They're constant, basically. There are people coming, walking around with drinks. I mean, you can get a drink from anywhere, basically. And yes, of course, you can play all the casino games which are laid out for you. So casinos are not a place for, serious discussions about things or for serious investing or anything like that. A casino is a place where you go and you know exactly why you're there. You're gambling, right? And that's exactly what happens in crypto a lot of the time, right? People are gambling on these assets. And as I said, I'm not making a moral judgment here at all. I'm just kind of laying out the reality of the two sides of crypto. The very degen casino-minded side of crypto, and then the very, I guess, cypherpunk side of crypto that are in it for the tech, that don't necessarily care about the degen stuff or the casino stuff. They may be making tools that enable that, but what they care about is basically advancing their technology and advancing these values that I just mentioned before. So anyway, you should go definitely read Vitalik's blog post if you haven't yet. It's very important, I think, to ground us in reality here and to ground us into actually what we're actually building here. Because the saddest thing I think for crypto would be that, let's say long term, 10 to 20 years time, crypto is still just a giant casino, and really 99% of the activity is just casino degen stuff. We haven't actually delivered any real value to the world outside of that. That would be, I guess, the most bearish outcome for crypto in my mind, is that it succeeds, but it succeeds for, I'm not going to say wrong reasons, but it succeeds for reasons that the, I guess, movement didn't start with. The movement started Cypherpunk, and then it just ended up being casino degen stuff, and no one cares about these values of decentralization and censorship resistance or anything like that anymore. All they care about is making as much money as possible. So yeah, we'll have to see how that shakes out, but you can go read Vitalik's blog post. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, another thing Vitalik published over the holiday period was an updated Ethereum roadmap diagram. Now, this, to me, is the most exciting thing that came out over the last 2 weeks. I mean, I was actually saying to a friend a couple of days before Vitalik posted this, I said to him, I bet you Vitalik posts an updated roadmap because it had been a while since he updated this roadmap, and I think a lot of people out there were wondering what the current state of a lot of the upgrades were. Now, I'm not going to go through each of these upgrades individually. You can actually check out Domothy's annotated version of the roadmap here. This is actually really detailed, and I highly recommend checking this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, but it annotates the entire kind of roadmap here, each of the roadmap items and what they mean for the network, what the current, I guess, work is being done on it. Yeah, I mean, just go check this out. It's really, really great. But what I will say, and a few of the comments I will make about this, is that the first thing I want to say, and the reason I say this is because I think there's a lot of confusion still about this. This roadmap diagram is not sequential. Right? This does not mean that the merge happens and the surge happens and the scourge happens. No, it doesn't work like that. These are all parallel. So basically what happens is that all of these things are being worked on at the same time. As you can see by the little green progress bar on each of the roadmap items, each of them are being worked on in parallel at the same time. There is no order where we say, okay, we're going to work on every item in the surge and then we'll move on to the rest of them. No, not at all. I mean, you guys know this. Take the Verge, for example, with Verkle trees. There's already testnets and devnets live for those things, right? And we're not even close to Verkle tree. I mean, we're relatively close. I mean, they probably go live 2025. But in terms of kind of, I guess, getting onto the network, we have EIP 48.4 going live first, and then towards the end of the year, a bunch of other EIPs that I don't think have anything to do with the Verge, but it's still being worked on. Same with the stuff under the Purge and the Splurge here. It's all being worked on in parallel. So I think that's critically important to understand. But if you actually look at the roadmap, there was the main critique that people made where they basically said that, it looks like on the Ethereum roadmap that layer 1 scaling has been abandoned. It's all about layer 2s now. And I thought this was funny because, one, Layer 1 scaling has not been abandoned per se, but it's not new that Layer 2s are the way Ethereum is going to scale. That's not news. That's been around since Vitalik published, even before Vitalik published the rollup-centric Ethereum roadmap, it's been over 3 years now of Ethereum having a rollup-centric roadmap, a roadmap where the L1 upgrades itself to service the L2s. But on the other note, around it being abandoned, like L1 scaling being abandoned, I don't think that's true at all. Because, for example, with the Verge and with Verkle trees, we could actually increase the gas limit once we get the Verge and I believe some roadmap items under the purge as well, in like light clients and things like that into the network, because now the network is able to kind of purge old stuff. There's less, I guess, like demand of the full nodes, of the validators, of the people running the network, and we can potentially increase the gas limit by like 10x, right? So the gas limit is essentially Ethereum's block size, Ethereum L1's block size, and we could increase that. And that right there is a scalability improvement. Yes, it's obviously not nowhere near enough for global scale, but it is a scalability improvement for L1, and there are a bunch of other roadmap items for that as well. But I think the main criticism fell to sharding. You know, us at the Ethereum ecosystem abandoning execution sharding. That was abandoned a long time ago. I don't know why this is news for people. I think it'd have to be at least 3+ years since execution sharding was abandoned in favor of the rollup centric roadmap. So it always blows my mind that people are just cluing into this. And what's even funnier about that is that people have finally started talking about EIP 4844. Guys, I don't think I don't know if you guys realize this, because I didn't. It's been 2+ years since EIP 4844 has been in development. And just now, like 3 months before it goes live on mainnet, people are paying attention. This is how far behind this ecosystem is. And this is, I guess, like why it's so frustrating when I go on Twitter and I see this. I'm like, why are you fighting Ethereum about this? Like, this has been on the roadmap for like 3+ years. So the reason execution sharding was abandoned was because it was not viewed as a long-term sustainable and scalable solution. It was not viewed as something that was actually beneficial to the Ethereum ecosystem. So we said, okay, can we still do sharding? Yes. Okay, we can do data sharding, which is danksharding, which is EIP 4844. And what's data sharding good for? Well, it's good for rollups. And that's exactly what we've been doing, what we've been delivering. That's exactly what's going to be delivered in hopefully March, right, with Denkun, the EIP 4844, laying the groundwork for full dank sharding with data availability sampling and getting to the holy grail of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of transactions per second on rollups themselves, right? And actually on that TPS note as well, I do want to note that when talking about transactions per second or transactions generally, you have to kind of break it down into what those transactions are. Because technically, when an L2 or when a rollup posts its data and its proof, obviously, to Ethereum L1, that is a transaction, right? But if it's posting it all as a bundle, right, posting the bundle to L1, what it's doing is it's bundling up a bunch of transactions at layer 2 and then just putting them on L1 as one transaction. So when you look at it like that, you could have potentially like tens of thousands of transactions bundled up into one transaction on Ethereum L1, right? So you have to kind of, I guess, like, get that nuance and get that understanding before you can talk about TPS numbers and transaction numbers. But I have full confidence that rollups are going to easily scale to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of TPS, and then they'll be able to scale to the world, basically. And as I said before, the end game is to basically make all of these transactions free, but through subsidization and all that good stuff there. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of like, I guess, like the surge part of the roadmap is basically increasing the scalability of L1 for L2s. Then you've got the Scourge, which is all about MEV, and MEV has been tackled, I mean, in parallel, obviously, to all this other stuff. There is so many people working on that it's bound to be solved. I mean, solved is maybe the wrong word, but it's bound to be tackled in the right way. The Verge, I mean, I just spoke about that, how there are testnets and devnets live already, and you can actually, for the Verge, if you want to track the progress on this, I actually linked this to a friend today. You can go to verkle.info, and I think I brought this up on the refill before, but verkle.info has all of the information you need about Verkle Tree. So if you're interested in keeping up with that, definitely go check that out. But that's part of the wider statelessness roadmap as well, and running light clients and things like that, which will allow us to actually scale the L1 too, right? And then you have the Purge here, which is essentially history or state expiry. EIP quadruple 4 is the main EIP on this, and making it so that we can essentially have it so that by clearing old history, the chain becomes lighter to run. You can do light clients, that sort of stuff. I mean, the Purge and the Verge kind of couple together in that respect. And then you have the Splurge. And the Splurge is named that way because basically it's the bonus content, where essentially we look at the stuff that we need to fix that will probably take longer term to fix because it's not urgent, but we want to fix it. And there are a bunch of items in here like improving EIP 1559. EIP 1559 is live, but it's not in its end state yet. Improving the EVM, maybe snarkifying the EVM, stuff like that, right? That's probably more longer term. But this roadmap covers like the next 10 years at least of Ethereum development there. But in saying all of that, Vitalik also has his own thread describing some of the roadmap items himself. So you can go check that out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But yeah, I mean, this is great. Like, I really, really do enjoy when Vitalik posts this stuff because like, as I've said before, I can post about this as much as I want. I can make as many videos about this as much as I want. I can talk about it as much as I want, but I'm never getting 3 million views on a tweet, right? I'm not Vitalik. I don't have, how many followers does he have on Twitter? I don't have 5 million followers on Twitter, right? I have like 250,000, which is way less than 5 million followers on Twitter. And Vitalik, being the founder of Ethereum, being such a well-respected individual within the crypto space, even outside of Ethereum, and the fact that the media obviously will repost this and will share it, like anything he posts just goes way further than anything I or anyone else could really do. And I don't think that means that Ethereum is centralized around Vitalik or anything like that. He just has the most reach, and all of this stuff being worked on. I mean, Vitalik's not even part of most of the stuff being worked on in this roadmap. He works on the things that he obviously works on, but he's one guy, right? He's just one dude working on the Ethereum protocol, and there's plenty of other people working on it as well, and they're working on each part of this kind of each part of this roadmap diagram here. So yeah, anyway, you can go check this out for yourself. Check out Vitalik's tweet thread for yourself, but definitely check out Domothy's annotated version of the roadmap. It gives a lot more information with a bunch of links to things to kind of read further. I mean, you could literally spend months on this, by the way, guys. Like, there is so much here, and just huge props to Domothy for putting this together, because it's helped me a lot whenever I wanted to learn about something on the roadmap that I haven't learned about before. I mean, I look at the roadmap diagram and I'm like, okay, like 90% of the stuff on this, I kind of like have a high level overview of, but like, I don't have a deep overview of that at all. There's so much going on here, and 10% of it just goes completely over my head, where I'm just like, yeah, okay, I'm not even going to bother trying to learn about that until it becomes clearer that it's actually going to be, included and things like that, because there's no guarantee that it'll be included in the way that it's currently described, right? And all that kind of stuff there. But anyway, go check those links out. I'll link them in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, speaking of EIP 4844, Francesco here, who is a researcher at the Ethereum Foundation, has posted a 4844 to danksharding roadmap, essentially. So the TLDR is that we can gradually scale to 32/64 blobs, 10 times 4844, and eventually beyond up to full danksharding, mostly with tools we are already familiar with. More blobs are coming. Now, if you guys are familiar with the way EIP 4844 works, or basically with the way blobs work, is that we're essentially starting with a small number of blobs and then increasing that over time as the network becomes more stable and more reliable and more secure, of course. And this post basically describes all of that. It is a really awesome post, guys. Like, I highly recommend going and reading this. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. But essentially, by increasing the blob sizes, we basically by increasing the number of blobs, we essentially allow more data from the rollups to be stored, which means more scalability for the rollup. So EIP 4844 really is the ground floor. It is the bedrock of danksharding. It basically is the very start. Once it's in place, we're going to be able to increase the number of blobs. We're going to work towards full danksharding, which is data availability sampling, which allows us to essentially scale up to what Vitalik was describing in his diagram there of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of transactions per second on these L2s. Now, the fun thing about this is that this is strictly an L1 improvement for the L2s, for the rollups, whereas the rollups themselves and the L2s themselves are going to be able to increase their scalability using many different tricks and many different kind of improvements to their own stack, like, improving the compression of things, improving prover costs, stuff like that, right? So that's all happening in parallel to this. So I think that the people who are maybe still a little bit impatient and being like, oh my god, the L2s are still so expensive, they're really not. I don't think they're really expensive even today. But once 4844 goes live, for those of you who remember, it doesn't share a fee market with the normal L1 Ethereum fee market. So essentially, we get like a brand new fee market, which may or may not be filled up by things like, I don't know, ordinals and inscriptions and stuff like that in the short term. But really, I mean, if you go to l2fees.info and look at what the fees are like today, a swap for a token on Optimism is 12 cents, right? According to l2fees.info. That's dropping to like a cent or something in 4844, even potentially less than that. And that's a full roll-up. That's not the L2 storing its data off-chain. That's a full rollup that stores its data on-chain. So there's just so many scalability improvements coming, guys, that I think that the notion that, Ethereum is too expensive is just going to die this cycle. Obviously, L1 is still going to be expensive, but I think the notion that Ethereum can't scale is going to die, especially as more of these kind of L2s and rollups approach stage 1 and stage 2 rollup milestones, where they become more decentralized and stuff like that. It's just all additive, guys. But anyway, you can go check out this post from Francesco. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so we have some rough analysis done by ETHWave on the max possible reduction of validators from increasing the max effective balance. Now, just a refresher here, you guys know that there is currently an EIP that is currently slated for the Petra upgrade, which is the upgrade, the next upgrade after Denkun, that essentially allows us to stake up to 2048 ETH per validator, which means that we could reduce the number of validators on the network while still keeping the same amount of ETH staked, or I guess like more ETH staked if more ETH gets staked there. Now, what ETHWave has done is basically taking each individual, I guess, like staking entity, such as Lido and centralized exchanges, look at the total number of validators they have, and then say, okay, well, if they consolidated all of their validators into, all of their 32 ETH validators into 2048 ETH validators, what would the total validator count be of Lido, of centralized exchanges, and of all the other validators? And the analysis here is that Lido would go from 285,000 validators to just 4,466. So a massive reduction in the amount of validators there, which means a massive reduction in overhead on the Ethereum network, and especially on the peer-to-peer layer there. And centralized exchanges, same thing, 255,000 validators down to 4,000. And then in the other section here, others a bit hard to reduce, but they've basically reduced it down from 358,000 to 179,000. So that would give us a total of 187,553 validators. For reference, there are currently almost 1 million validators live on the network, I think. I mean, I haven't checked lately, but I think it's definitely over 900,000. I'm just checking on the number here. Yeah, it's 903,000. So you could assume that would be at 1 million by the time the MEB proposal goes through. So if we're at 1 million, and even just like, I don't expect all of this to be consolidated, but even if we could halve that to like 500,000, that's just a massive improvement, and it allows us to increase the blobs on the network as well, because it means that there's less overhead for full nodes, less overhead for validators, and there's less risk of lower powered devices getting kicked off the network and stuff like that. So yeah, just a great little analysis from ETHWave here. You can read the thread for the full analysis. I'll link that in the YouTube description below. But essentially, that is a massive reduction. I mean, I doubt Lido is going to do this, to be honest, and centralized exchanges are going to do this, because they, at least, so by do this, I mean at least to this extent. Like, and there's two major reasons. One, it's a lot of overhead, I think, to do it, because I mean it is opt-in. You're not forced to do it. And in Lido's case in particular, the node operators are basically independent of each other, so they would be doing it at different timelines as well, and they have their own setups, they have their own way of managing things. And two, some of them may be worried about the increased slashing risk, but I think that might be addressed as part of this proposal, as part of the AIP. So we're gonna have to see how that shakes out there. But the increased slashing risk is not something I think that should be worried about, because from my understanding, the thing that people worry about is that, okay, well, let's say I have 10,000 validators today, and then I get slashed on 1,000 of them. Well, it's only that 1,000 that loses some of the ETH, right? They get punished. My other 9,000 don't get punished. And it's better to think of that in terms of like ETH instead of validators. But just for the sake of argument here, that I'm just going to use validator count. But let's say they consolidate that down to 1,000, and then they're like, okay, well, I get slashed on all 1,000, but then all of the ETH is affected by it. But the thing is that the way you would get slashed is by you'd be connected to the same full node anyway, and you'd be in the same kind of on the same infrastructure anyway. So and there are other technologies to help with that, like DVT and puffer and stuff like that. So when you think about it from that perspective, I don't think the risk is really that big. And I think that the benefit is huge of reducing the amount of validators on the network, because we still have the same level of security, because there's still the same number of node operators, there's still the same number of full nodes on the network. But in terms of validators, it's redundant to have this many, because the execution sharding roadmap was abandoned. And we originally wanted a lot of validators because of that original design. Now it's just tech debt, and it adds so much overhead to the network that we don't need, and that it limits us from doing other things like increasing the size of blobs, increasing the amount of blobs on the network, stuff like that, right? Increasing the gas limit even. So we're going to have to see how that all kind of shakes out there, but it's great to see this little analysis done by ETHWave here. All right, so just wanted to give this a quick shout out. Nouns DAO and the Line Studio have are collabing on an EIP 4844 animation. So this Trent says here, this 1 min animation celebrates the work of Ethereum contributors, bringing EIP 4844 to mainnet. Expect an NFT release at the upgrade. Proceeds go to the Protocol Guild. So I can't wait to mint this NFT, especially because the proceeds go to the Protocol Guild. But what I can't wait for more is this animation itself. I mean, it's only going to be a 1 minute animation, but the fact that we're getting a whole animation about EIP 4844 and how Ethereum contributors brought that to mainnet is going to be really cool. It's going to be really shareable. I think it's going to be something that the community can rally around, and especially because it's an NFT that Once you mint it, the proceeds go to the actual contributors, the protocol guild, in order to reward them for all of their hard work here. So really, really great to see this. Just wanted to shout it out, but you can go check this out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so over the last 2 weeks, there's been a bit of a revenge arc, I think, for Ethereum and L2s, because obviously you guys know from I guess the September period to the December period, we had a lot of FUD around Ethereum and L2s, mostly due to the Solana price going up, or the Sol price going up, and Solana activity going up, and all that stuff that happened there. I mean, you guys have all seen it. There's no point me diving into all of it because most of it was just noise, but because of that, I think a lot of the people in the Ethereum community, especially the L2 leaders like Stephen Goldfeder here, who is the co-founder at Off-Chain Labs, who builds Arbitrum, they were like, what the hell, guys? This makes no sense. The L2s are here. They work. They've been around for a long time. The Ethereum L2 roadmap is not something new. It's scalable. It works. Arbitrum, it works so well. I mean, I use Arbitrum all the time, or Arbitrum 1 all the time. It works so well. Just as an example here. So, Stephen put out this tweet where he says, Ethereum said, we're going to scale by building a rollup centric Ethereum. And then all these alts, or I guess alt layer ones and stuff like that said, okay, we're going to scale at the base layer. And Ethereum said, okay, you go do that, right? You go scale at layer 1. That's totally fine. And then fast forward 3 years, the alt layer 1 proponents say, oh my God, Ethereum still hasn't scaled. And Ethereum says, well, we scaled with L2s exactly like we said we would. And then the other people, the alt layer 1 say, well, L2s don't count, actually. If you're not scaling the L1, it doesn't matter. So this is the kind of narrative fodder that really annoys me and that I talk about a lot, but it also annoys people that are obviously building this stuff because it makes no sense. It's not even based in reality here. It's just a pure narrative where essentially you're denying the fact that Ethereum has had this roadmap for 3+ years, and you're denying the fact that Ethereum has scaled via L2s just like it said it would. We abandoned L1 monolithic scaling because it's just not a good sustainable path to scale. And we're already seeing the cracks in some of these designs, to be honest. I mean, not to pick on Solana, but I'm just talking about monolithic chains generally. There are already cracks there in terms of fees going up because chains get congested and people are paying priority fees, right? In terms of stability issues of supporting infrastructure, in terms of kind of economic sustainability as well, which I talk about a lot on the Refuel, and something that more people are paying attention to now, but it's something that I've talked about for years. So all of this just goes hand in hand with each other here around these kind of bad narratives. And I think this is just the worst. The fact that people are saying, L2s don't count. You haven't scaled the base layer, so, you haven't scaled Ethereum. That just is not true at all. Ethereum has scaled. It's scaled via layer 2s, and it's going to continue to scale, and we're really only at the beginning still. I mean, layer 2s have so much further to go, not just from a scalability perspective, but also from an experimentation perspective, which brings me to my next tweet, which is from Dino here, who is also an L2 founder at Fluent, which are building a ZK Wasm L2 here. Dino tweeted out, Ethereum is not just the EVM. Ethereum L2s can support general purpose languages, parallel programming models, novel or optimized databases, custom isolated or private state, vertically integrated tools or apps, novel economics or governance, and L2s are boundless. So the whole point of this is basically that, okay, well, L2s bring scalability, but scalability is table stakes. If you're building an L2, scalability is baked into that. You don't build an L2 without scalability in mind. That doesn't make any sense, right? So if a scalability is table stakes, if that is the bare minimum to be an L2, well, what else can these L2s do? Well, it turns out they can do anything you want. You can literally do exactly what the L1s do at L2. You can do the exact same thing, far better, far more securely, far better from an economic sustainability perspective. You can tap into an already massive ecosystem within Ethereum. You get better bridging infrastructure. You get better supporting infrastructure, and you get to experiment in the infinite garden that is Ethereum without being tied to the EVM. And this is another really strong point against monolithic L1s, in my opinion, where essentially, at least the way they're currently architected, you are limited to that L1's design. You cannot experiment with other designs. You are limited to what it's using for its VM. You are limited to what it's using for its economics, its fee mechanisms, right? You are limited in what it's doing for its consensus layer and stuff like that, right? And MEV and ordering of transactions and all that kind of stuff there. So in that world, how does that compete with a modular roadmap that Ethereum Ethereum has, where the L2s can basically be that L1, but as an L2, it doesn't have to be limited. It can edit itself as much as it wants. It can change itself as much as it wants. Yes, it's going to be centralized for a while, but the thing is that experimentation is always done best in a centralized way, because if you're experimenting, you want to move fast, and you can't move fast if you're decentralized. Like, that is actually the pillar of decentralization to me. If you're moving too fast and you're changing things too fast, you can't say you're decentralized. Like, for example, within Ethereum L1, if we were shipping an upgrade every month, I'd be like, what the hell, guys? Like, this isn't decentralized. There's no way you can coordinate 10 client teams in a month, get everything built, right? In a decentralized way in order to ship an upgrade a month. It just doesn't happen. And so that's why upgrades in Ethereum L1 take forever. Whereas the L2s, you can do that because there may just be one or two clients or client teams working on the L2. It's a very centralized kind of team working on it. But the thing is, that's the whole point. They can move faster. They can potentially, I'm not going to say break things, but they can take more risks. They can experiment more, and they can get a lot more juice out of what they're building. Whereas Ethereum L1 as a settlement layer for these L2s, it shouldn't be doing that at all. It should be very decentralized, which it is. It should be very slow to change, very slow to move, and those changes should be relentlessly tested for a very long time before they even think about getting into the network, which is exactly what happens with each upgrade. So, yeah, I mean, I thought it was just a really great point here that Dino brought up, that Ethereum is not the EVM. You do not have to be an EVM L2 to be considered Ethereum, right? If you're an L2, if you're settling down to Ethereum, you are Ethereum, in my mind at least. So, great tweet from Dino there. And there was a bunch of replies to this tweet as well. If you want to read through them, I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so you've probably been wondering what's been happening with Base lately. So Base is obviously Coinbase's L2 on Ethereum. Well, Jesse Pollack put out a tweet in reply to DC Investor here, talking about what they're actually working on to get out very quickly. I guess get this out shortly. Oh, wait, sorry. He says that working on getting this out shortly, which is basically a public roadmap for Base. But essentially, he highlighted the main things coming here. So the TLDR is that they want to get to stage 2 and then stage 1 and then stage 2 decentralization ASAP, while supporting the network to achieve 99.99% plus availability, driving down fees to less than 1 cent with EIP 4844, further with danksharding and L2 optimizations themselves, accelerating smart wallets by default with 4337, paymasters and bundlers, which I guess like paymasters and bundlers are things like paying gas in any token you want, essentially, unlocking best-in-class on-ramps and stablecoins for every geography in the world, supporting Coinbase to bring its users, assets, and products on-chain, and enabling developer tools to make it easy as possible for anyone, anywhere to build an on-chain app. So just great to see that TLDR roadmap there, but great to see that Jesse will be publishing a public roadmap on Base here. I think that Base has been, I mean, it started off with a lot of fanfare and then kind of gone by the wayside a little bit, because of obviously the other narratives that have taken over. But in terms of people that can be onboarded on chain, in terms of where they're going to onboard to, like, I can't think of anywhere better than Base, because not only is Base closely tied to Coinbase, and obviously Coinbase can get these users onto Base very easily, Base is offering like free USDC transfers, for example, right? They have that thing where you can essentially verify and tie your Coinbase account to one of your addresses on chain, and essentially get perks on the Base network. You have Coinbase with their world-class engineering team managing Base and building it out. You have them committed to actually decentralizing the network ASAP, which I think is incredibly important, obviously, and I think that's definitely a moat for a lot of these L2s. And also, Base is built on the OP stack, so it gets to inherit all of those really great things from the OP stack, all those really great improvements there. And I know that still fraud proofs aren't live in the OP stack, but they will be relatively soon. I think they're actually like coming soon, TM, hopefully, right? But like once that kind of gets done and once that's live there, I think that's like the biggest knock against the OP stack right now. But that's coming very, very soon. So yeah, just a really great tweet from Jesse here highlighting the Base roadmap, but he also tweeted out as well about how on-ramping is going to work onto these L2s. So he said, the days of on and off ramping via Ethereum L1 are over. The vast majority of new users will onboard directly to L2, then have cheap, fast, easy ways to do anything. A Base value from the beginning has been a bridge, not an island, because we want to enable exactly this. So there's been a lot of fight around this recently where people are like, oh, you know, people tell me to use L2s, but going from L1 to L2 cost me like $20 in gas fees or whatever. It's like, okay, I'm not going to say that's like a good thing, but like, you got to think about the marginal user coming into crypto, like the new users and things like that, right? They're not going to L1, right? If you're talking about new users, I'm not talking about existing users here. That's a different story. But new users, they're not going to L1. They're going straight to L2, right? So the major exchanges like Coinbase and Binance, they already support these L2s. They support Arbitrum and Optimism and Base. So going from Coinbase to Base, for example, costs less than 10 cents and I think from Binance and OKX as well, as Jesse mentions here. And that is very similar to the fees charged on other networks out there to kind of like on-ramp onto them. And that will obviously come down over time as well. And the reason why they can do this so cheaply is because the Coinbase isn't bridging from L1 to L2 themselves to give you your assets on L2. They've already got a balance on L2. So they're just basically doing an accounting change here where essentially they're sending you the asset on the L2 from their L2 address, not from their L1 address. So that's what it's going to be. The future of onboarding is onboarding directly from a centralized exchange. It's not going from L1 to L2 because at the end of the day, most users are never going to go to L1 anyway. So there's no use of them going to L1 and then L2. They're going to go straight to the L2s. And they're gonna enjoy all of the benefits of that there. And then from L2 to L2 as well, they're gonna be doing, but we're gonna get the cost of that down too. And there are obviously different risks involved with that and all that good stuff there. But yeah, anyway, just wanted to highlight that from Jesse here. But great things coming for the L2s, guys. I mean, I think 2024 is going to be a really, really bullish year for L2s generally. There are so many things happening, not just 48, 44, but all of the L2s themselves are making, tons of headway, tons of upgrades. I mean, I think Arbitrum wants to become a stage 2 roll-up this year, which will be the first stage 2 roll-up. Well, not technically the first stage 2 roll-up, but, the first stage 2 roll-up with any economic activity on it because Arbitrum is the biggest L2 right now. So that would be a huge milestone hit because then we can get rid of the FUD of, all L2s are centralized. Like, well, no, Arbitrum 1 is not centralized and the others will follow. And then eventually we'll get to that place where these L2s are all decentralized. Well, at least most of them, not all L2s are created equal. A lot of them will fail. A lot of them won't even get any traction, but that's just the way these things play out. And on top of that as well, I think that there are other exciting things happening within the L2s, but each of them have their own kind of roadmap that you can go check out in their own respective communities. But yeah, I think 2024, very bullish. I mean, the three things I think that's very bullish about 2024 for Ethereum, the three main things at least, obviously spot ETH ETF, L2s, and restaking. I still think people are underestimating the impact of restaking, especially if the market is in like full bull-tard mode. Like, restaking is going to be ridiculous, guys. And you guys know that I'm an investor in Eigenlayer, but I've been talking about Eigenlayer for a very long time, and I just want to be very transparent about like how bullish I am on them. I mentioned in the Daily Gwei Discord channel today that I'm more bullish on restaking as a primitive, and obviously Eigenlayer by extension, than I am on kind of like L2s right now. Now, it's not a competition really. I mean, L2s are a broad category, obviously. Restaking is not as broad, but it's kind of hard to pick any of the kind of like one L2s. There's so many L2s. I think there's only 3 restaking protocols right now, with Eigenlayer being like 99% of the market share. But in terms of just like what it enables, because Eigenlayer is infrastructure that enables better L2s as well. It enables things like decentralized sequencer networks, decentralized data availability networks like EigenDA, for example, right? Where the L2, if it doesn't want to store its data on Ethereum L1, you can store it on EigenDA, those sorts of things. And Oracle networks, really anything. There's just an explosion of things that are going to happen. So I'm just like really, really bullish on those 3 things as like the main things in 2024, but there are so many other things to be bullish about as well, right? But yeah, I'm going to digress on that point there, move on to the next bit of stuff that I wanted to talk about, which is just a tweet that I actually wanted to highlight here from Sam McPherson. This tweet is all about Maker. So Maker is a powerhouse. There's no other way to put it. Maker is an absolute powerhouse of a financial product or a DeFi product on Ethereum here. But the reason why you may not hear about it very often is because it's quote unquote boring, right? It is not something to be excited about. It is not degen. It is not casino. It is really at the heart of it a platform that issues a stablecoin in DAI, and there's a bunch of other things that feed into that. They've been really big in the real world asset space recently, bringing a lot of real world assets on chain. That in itself is not exciting for degens as well. That's why you don't hear about it. But in terms of what I mean by powerhouse here, Maker makes a lot of money. Like, they have a lot of revenue. You can actually see that in this tweet which I highly recommend giving a read. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below. But essentially, I believe Maker is making about $100 to $200 million a year or something in revenue. That is a crazy amount of revenue for a DeFi project, especially because of the fact that this is real revenue, guys. This is not degen revenue. This is not token revenue. This is real revenue driven by real world assets. So I just highly recommend giving Sam's tweet a read if you want to kind of get bullish on Maker. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because at the end of the day, when you kind of like you kind of think about the fact that what do people get excited about and what do people kind of speculate on, it's usually the DJ and casino stuff. But what has lasting value in this ecosystem is the boring stuff. And even if it's boring, it can still be exciting from a different perspective. But you can go check this out. I'll link Sam's tweet in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, just the final couple of things here. Remember that Ether.fi contest or Christmas contest that I was running with the Ether.fi people here? You can go check out the thread that was put together announcing all the winners. So congrats to all of you guys. There was a lot of great submissions. I really enjoyed reviewing all of them. I did a little video talking about the top winners here, so you can check that out for yourself. But yeah, you can go read the thread of the winners here, and congrats to all the winners. I know some of you are Daily Gwei Discord community members, so great to see you winning. I didn't pick you because you're a Daily Gwei Discord community member. I tried to be as objective as possible on who I picked. The first place actually went to Zoffy here, who you may have seen on the refill before. They make these really, really cool kind of contraptions. You can see here, these 3D printed kind of Ethereum related or Ethereum themed contraptions. They're awesome. I mean, I love this stuff like so much. And I mean, the fact that they put this much effort into this stuff and the fact that they've put so many kind of like Easter eggs in it and described why they've done it and all the stuff that they've done in terms of kind of translating for Ethereum.org and everything around it. I mean, there's so much, and also being a solo staker as well. So just a crazy amount of stuff that of value that Zoffy has added to the ecosystem here that I felt like it was an obvious choice for first place. But definitely go check out all the other winners as well. They're really great. I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to do so. So last up here, I just wanted to mention the Bankless ETH Bull podcast that I did that came out, I think, last week for premium Bankless members, but this week for just regular Bankless members here. So this was the episode I did with obviously David and Ryan, but with Mike Ippolito and Jordy Alexander here, who, you know, what's funny about doing it with Mike and Jordy was that they aren't your typical ETH bulls. They're very bullish on ETH and Ethereum, but they come at it from a very different perspective as to what like myself and some other of the traditional ETH bulls come at it from. Obviously, David and Ryan are probably more aligned with my thinking with an ETH bull case, but Mike and Jordy came at it from different directions, and we all agreed on most things, honestly. Once we kind of described how we viewed things to each other, I think at one point in the podcast, Mike even mentioned, it's like, oh, we actually agree on a lot of stuff. I think that maybe he thought that we didn't agree on as much stuff because maybe he just had a different idea there. But I think that's what generally happens when you kind of talk about things and people just don't know you very well and you haven't like kind of talked to them one-on-one. They tend to assume your views on certain things based on maybe a tweet that they saw or based on some other comments that they saw. Whereas when you actually talk to people and talk to them kind of on a panel or one-on-one and you kind of give breath to the conversation, you can find common ground pretty much everywhere. So it was just a really great podcast, and I hope you guys that have listened to it enjoyed it. But if you haven't seen it yet or listened to it yet, definitely go check it out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But I think that's going to be it for today's episode. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.